Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. I also want to officially introduce this as the start of my How to Start an Online Business series. This series will basically talk through how to start a business and the things that might lead you towards doing that. So if you are interested in that type of content, then please do hit the subscribe button and join the community, because we are going to really be deep diving into all of the personal finance and business and entrepreneurial topics this season. So in today's video, I wanted to set the scene a little bit, and I thought what better than a very relevant and current view at the economic climate. So today we're going to dive into the topic of recessions. I thought I would start this video off with a quick definition. I will pop something up on the screen. But essentially, a recession is a significant, widespread and prolonged downturn in economic activity. A common rule of thumb is that 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP, aka gross domestic product, indicates that we are in a recession. And so what you might be asking yourself is, okay, so what happens in a recession? So in a recession, economic output, consumer confidence, spending and employment all drop. Interest rates in a recession are also likely to decline, as in the US, the Federal Reserve Bank will typically cut rates to support the economy. So essentially, during a recession, the economy struggles, people lose work, companies make fewer sales, and the country's overall economic output declines. So the point where an economy actually falls into a recession depends on a variety of different factors. So what you might be wondering is, what are the key signs that we are in a recession? So there's a few different indicators of looming trouble. Warning signs, as I've mentioned before, include a decline in consumer confidence, sudden stock market declines, a rise in unemployment and job cuts, and typically people not being able to afford their household bills or mortgages. So if we're going by the general definition of what a recession is, aka 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP, the US actually entered a recession in the summer of 2022. As far as the UK is concerned, we are in a recession and will remain in one for the whole of 2023. And that is according to the Independent Office of Budget Responsibility. So the average length of a recession can be approximately about 10 months. However, they can be much longer than that. So for example, the Great Recession of 2007 to 2009 obviously lasted about 18 months, or they can be super short. So for example, in the UK, the most recent recession was during COVID-19, where in Q1 and Q2 of 2020, GDP saw negative growth and didn't return back to pre-pandemic levels until late 2021. So how can a recession affect you? Unemployment is one of the biggest ways that a recession might have an impact on your general day-to-day life. Companies are ultimately finding ways to save money, and laying off parts of the workforce is one way in which they do so. You'll probably have seen in the news that loads of big tech companies, including Amazon, Meta, Google, Salesforce, have all made significant cuts of in and around about 10% of their workforce. So not only in a recession is unemployment likely to be high, and the likelihood that you might lose your job is higher than normal, but you also might find it quite difficult to find another job because there are so many people out of work. Another way in which the recession could impact you is in terms of your investments. So investments in stocks, bonds, property and other assets can lose value in a recession, which ultimately reduces your savings and has an impact on your plans for retirement. If you own a business during a recession, this can typically manifest in making fewer sales because consumer spending is down, and a lot of businesses can be forced into bankruptcy during a recession. And finally, with more people unable to pay their bills, lenders can tighten standards for mortgages, car loans and other types of financing. And so let's talk about how you can prepare for a recession. So I did a little Google and I found 5 steps that financial experts recommend you can take to prepare yourself for a recession and weather the storm. So the first tip, and I have spoken about that in my video where I discuss my 2023 goals, I will link that on the card just up there in case you want to watch that, is to focus on budgeting and building up an emergency fund. Now, an emergency fund is a pot of liquid savings that you can access should times get hard. Typically, experts recommend between 3 to 6 months worth of your monthly outgoings saved. So let's say it costs you $1,500 to cover your bills, your mortgage, your rent, your car payments and food and everything else. You should have between 3 to 6 times that saved up as part of an emergency fund. So if you don't already have an emergency fund, I would recommend starting to save towards one. The second tip is to prioritize paying off high interest debt. So high interest debt could be anything from personal loans, other unsecured lending that you might have that has a very high interest rate. So paying that off and then starting your emergency fund is definitely a way to go. The third tip is to update your resume. During a recession with rising unemployment and possible job cuts, it's always worthwhile having an up-to-date, refreshed CV that you can, have on hand just in case you need to get back into the job market. I would also recommend personally that your LinkedIn is up to date with all of your recent positions, any new skills that you've acquired, qualifications that you've done, and just kind of make sure that your profile appeals to prospective recruiters for roles that you might look for. The fourth tip is to get creative about saving. So there are a number of ways in which you can cut back your expenses. That could be perhaps preparing more meals at home, buying a keep cup and saving money on your morning coffee by making it at home, using any roundup services that your bank might have. I know, for example, Monzo and other sort of challenger banks typically have an easy way for you to round up your transactions to the nearest pound, and any of the spare pennies goes into like a savings pot. I believe Monzo calls it roundups, and it's probably called something similar across the board. So there's a creative way to just put a little bit of money away while you're spending. And the final tip is that if you have to invest, do be savvy about it. So I am actually signed up to Martin Lewis's Money Saving Expert blog, and I follow him on Twitter, and he is essentially like a personal finance guru, I would say, and he always has loads of cool tips and tricks around different savings accounts, like cashback sites, and just ways in which you can save money. What I always find really helpful from him is his recommendations about savings accounts that pay the highest interest. I would definitely think about making sure you're maximizing the return that you're getting from any investments that you have, and also thinking about diversifying your investment portfolio. The final tip, which is not necessarily an expert recommended tip but definitely one from me, is to have multiple streams of income. I'm going to be doing a video on that next, and you guys can hear all about my ideas for how many streams is a good number to secure you and to basically recession proof yourself and weather the tough times ahead. For those that are unaware, multiple streams of income is just having lots of different sources of which you get money. So for me personally, that includes my YouTube channel, that includes any brand sponsorships I do, that includes my salary from work, income from online businesses. And obviously this series is all about how to start an online business, so I'll be talking more about that later on down the line. But multiple streams of income basically just hedges your bets and means that you're not dependent on one source of income for survival. So in summary, recessions are an unavoidable part of the business cycle, and also a regular part of the cadence of expansion and contraction that occurs in a nation's economy. At the moment, the UK and US are in recession, and while we cannot accurately predict how long a recession is going to last, tough times do never last. So it won't be forever, but I just thought that this would be a handy video to film to introduce the series and basically to give some context and talk to the reason why I decided to start an online business, which I'll be launching later on this year. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed that video. I hope it's given you a bit of a high-level overview into what a recession is and how you can prepare. I will create a playlist for this series so that you can catch up on all the videos in it so far. Please do check out some of my more recent videos. I will link those on the end card. Subscribe if you are excited for this series, and if you have enjoyed this type of content, give the video a thumbs up. Otherwise, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. When it pop off, it's like, oh my, all good all day, but the night we be going so hard on the flip side. So
tell me we'll be on a date, babe. I could keep that same energy. When you go low, I go low too. But you'd rather stay high, I know.